Hi everyone, and thanks for watching this recording of our grad writing Q&A, Don't Be Spooked. Our panelists for this event are Ayesha Mutalali, who is a fifth-year PhD candidate in pharmacology. She's worked as a graduate research assistant in Dr. Tao Lu's lab. Some of the genres of writing she's worked with include NIH F99 grants and institutional grants, trainee fellowship writing, scholarship fellowship essay writing, research articles, review articles, book chapters, and blog posts. Our second panelist for this event is Kelsey Hawkins, who is a second-year graduate student in IUPUI's English Master's program. She's interested in pursuing a PhD in rhetoric and composition and will be applying to programs this fall. Kelsey got her start in writing studies at IUPUI's University Writing Center and now teaches sections of the first-year writing program, W131. She's presented at the Eastern Central Writing Center Association Conference, the Writing Program Administration Summer Research Series, and Indiana College English Association Conference. She has two forthcoming publications in the Peer Review and the ECWCA Journal. Her research interests include writing about writing pedagogies, engagement-based assessment systems, and carceral rhetorics. So they both have a lot of experience in different areas of graduate writing, and I hope you'll find their advice really helpful today. Thanks. So I'm really excited for today. And to start out, I was wondering, I was hoping you two would both just spend a few minutes talking in general about how you approach writing and what your writing process looks like. Would one of you like to go first?
I can go ahead, and then Aisha, you can follow up. My my writing process, I think, has developed a lot, and it developed a lot since undergrad. Just because the types of writing that I do now are different, or maybe more involved, or um, reach different audiences than the kinds of writing that I did as an undergrad, which for the most part was like for my professors or for my peers in class. And now more so, I'm writing kind of for a wider audience of like other scholars in my field, maybe for publication, a lot of times for presentation. So I've always done research, but research is just like a lot more involved now. And I've had to adapt my strategies for taking that research into kind of writing a larger project. So for me, like I use things like double entry journals, and reading responses kind of as I'm researching to help me coalesce my thoughts and then move into like the writing process where I am consolidating those ideas more. And I use a lot of kind of visual tools like mapping. And even I have this like weird habit of like creating post-it notes and making kind of like a visual outline on my wall of like with different post-it notes to kind of tell me like the sections of my article just so I can see the whole thing as I'm trying to like write particular parts of it. And then I'm kind of always like revising as I go. I don't have a humongous like big revision stage at the end. I'm kind of doing it as I go, and then when I get feedback from others, that's kind of the revisions that I'll go ahead and think about.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. I really liked the sticky note like collage. I think that can be really helpful to just like lay it all out visually. Uh, so Aisha, can you tell us a little bit about your writing process?
Yeah, sure. Mine is a little bit crazy because I don't like to use things that are like rules or guidelines or anything like that. So I mostly write research articles, like review articles and stuff like that. So my writing process for that, I usually just open a bunch of tabs. So it depends on the topic that I'm given. So sometimes journals will invite us to write for like a specific issue, and then we have to propose topic based on our expertise. So once I decide a topic, I kind of just go through PubMed or Google Scholar and like Google like a bunch of different terms. For example, if it's about a disease or maybe a protein in a disease, I Google lots of stuff about the protein. I Google a lot of stuff about not Google, but like check the databases for a lot of stuff about the disease as well. And I just kind of make a mental note of things that I'm seeing. And then based on that, I'm going to make an outline. And then once I make an outline, I just go crazy from there. I open like a bunch of different tabs and I start writing. So, and I try not to reinvent the wheel because everything I write for research articles, it has to have a reference, or it has to have a source. So I'm not rewriting like or I'm not generating ideas out of thin air. I'm literally taking what I've seen and then synthesizing it and then writing it in my own words. Um, so that's my writing process for like research and stuff like that. For grants, I always make sure to emphasize novelty, like what's the significance, how is this different? Why should they give me money and all of that? Although I haven't gotten any grants, but some of the scores that I've gotten for the grants I've written were pretty competitive. So I kind of use the same writing process for that as well. Kind of go through the literature, create an outline, and then just make sure for grants I'm emphasizing novelty. And then for fellowship and scholarship essays, I try to reflect. I do a lot of reflection and then just do a word vomit. And from there, I go on to edit and send to people who can give me feedback and kind of refine my writing from there. I think that's about it.
Yeah, thanks. I really liked how you talked about how you adapted your process differently for like the different forms and genres you were writing. I think that's really valuable. So I have some extra questions prepared, but Grace, if you had any specific questions about types of writing or how they approach writing or how graduate writing has differed from like their undergraduate writing, I wanted to give you the space to ask those first.
So this is going to be like my first initial meeting, so I just wanted to pretty much get a grasp of what is discussed, and then I can come up with questions at the end, if that's fine.
Yeah, sure. I should probably unmute before I talk again. Uh, so let's see. So one of the ones I had was you talked about your individual processes for writing. So when you do sit down to write or do research, what helps you get in like the mindset for doing that so you can like get in the zone?
Personally, I kind of like working in quieter spaces. I know a lot of people can write with like music on or with maybe like a podcast or a TV show in the background, but for me, that really doesn't work. It's just a little too distracting for me because I'm not great at like auditory processing and like compartmentalizing. So if I'm dealing with words on a page trying to write, I can't have like words happening around me. So at most I can do some like ambient music or like classical music or something that would still be fine. But it's difficult for me to work in kind of like public spaces even. So like a coffee shop for writing at least doesn't really work very well for me. The library third floor is really great because it's kind of a quiet area. Even sometimes being on other floors of the library works nicely, or like in Kavanaugh on like the fifth floor where it's really quiet. Definitely not in my office because I'm just running into everybody I know and I want to talk to them. And also like I like to have a really neat area around me so that I can like I'm a big printer whenever I have to like do research and I need to read like an article or something, I print it out so I have the physical thing. So I need to like have like a space for like six different articles that are like highlighted all around me. And then obviously like my laptop and like at least one notebook. So I'm big on like space, I'm big on kind of quiet. As far as like anything I do to kind of get in like the headspace of writing, I just try to like start with something really simple. So instead of just like opening up a Word document and being like, okay, start writing, like maybe I'll do a little editing of like a paragraph that I did the day before, the week before. Or I might start by like creating a small outline or to-do list of some of the things I want to accomplish today. And that helps me like get just like a little bit into the zone a little bit without having to just like confront the scary, like a blank Word document.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm the same way with like I can't have a bunch of words going on around me or like music with words when I'm writing. So you're not alone in that. Aisha, is there anything you do to like kind of get in the zone and focus?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Kelsey said. I also like quieter areas. Aside from the environment and everything that she mentioned, internally, I like to like prime my mind, depending on whatever it is that I want to write. If it's like a fellowship or a scholarship, I'll look at the criteria and I'll just try to sit and reflect and then just write whatever comes out. Like it doesn't even have to be perfect on the first try. For research, priming my mind is the opening of so many tabs and like just Googling stuff. And that kind of generates ideas inside of me. And I read a book, it's called Deep Work. And I think the book emphasized like state of flow, which is kind of what you're asking, how do we get into the state of flow? And I think the quietness and when you sit in front of your laptop and you just prime your mind, like searching for stuff, and just that quietness, and then you're hyper focusing on like the stuff that you're using to prime your mind. It kind of gets me into the state of flow whereby like I'm one with my thoughts. Like I don't feel like I exist physically anymore. It's kind of weird to describe, but you're just one with whatever it is that you're working on, and then that gets me in the zone. And then when I take a break, I am like, oh wow, I exist, or there's an outside world. But yeah, that's what I do.
I have a question regarding that starting. So you both discussed different approaches. One is, I think, just starting simple with anything. How do you, basically, what gets you into the motivation to start? Is it a deadline? Is it a specific schedule that you're following? When do you tell yourself, okay, now it is time to start? Or I hope that's clear. It's a very
Yeah, I think for me, whatever I'm writing, I actually love it. Like I have to love the topic. If it's a fellowship, of course, I'm probably motivated by what I'm gonna get. Maybe it's the money or like deadlines. Deadlines are pressurizing to me. I whenever I know that there's a task at hand, I create my own artificial deadline, which is usually maybe a week before the actual deadline or 2 weeks before the actual deadline, in case if I need to get feedback and all of that. But actually, I'm I always like whatever it is that I'm writing. And if you like something, you would be motivated to want to get to it and get it done with. And like with PhD, like you have so many things that you're doing. So if that writing is like one huge obstacle, you're just like, I have to get it out of the way. So that's also part of the things that motivate me to get started with writing.
Yeah, I'm also like deadlines. I need them just because of like, when you're a grad student, you have a lot of different types of things going on. So, if you're taking your own classes, but maybe you're also writing a thesis or a dissertation, maybe you're part of a lab or you're doing research for an organization, maybe you're on the board of a couple committees, and maybe you're teaching or you're working at the writing center. So it's a lot of different types of things to compartmentalize. So having a deadline kind of helps me know how to prioritize all the different kind of things that I'm juggling. Um, I've also been kind of tracking my writing habits. So Savannah, I think you know about this because Mary Lee shared it with us, but there's an organization, I can't remember what exactly the acronym stands for, NCFDD. I just put a link in the chat. But they have they have 14-day writing challenges where you try to track 30 minutes a day for 14 days, and you can like check in and you can talk to other people about, what are the roadblocks that you're facing? What are some things that helped you today? How do you reward yourself for writing today? And then you can kind of like set goals for each writing session that you have. So that was actually very, very helpful for me in the past couple months, especially as I've had a few different writing projects going on. Because I find that even if you can only dedicate like 10, 20, 30 minutes a day to a project, keeping it in your mind and keeping it fresh and like sitting down to dedicate some time to it will help you keep on track much better, instead of like, it's been a week since I looked at this and now like I need to jog my memory about what I've already written and what my research how my research is kind of developing. So just like being kind of present with it for a few minutes every day, I think keeps you engaged and keeps you kind of motivated to keep working on it, and then just makes the project more manageable.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah, those were both really great answers, I thought. Like splitting it up and having that like outside accountability, whether that's like with a program or with like deadlines, like you were talking about, Aisha. Yeah, I also find the external deadline to be really helpful, especially when you're juggling like so many other responsibilities as a graduate student. So, and Aisha, you already talked about this a little bit when you were giving your overview for writing process, but maybe we could go more into depth about how does your writing process change depending on the types of writing you're doing, or does it change? Do you find that you have a consistent process like across different projects?
Mine is pretty consistent just because I find everything requires research. Like, no matter what I'm writing, it requires some amount of research. So, the basic skeleton of, almost every single thing that I'm writing looks the same, just maybe in smaller kind of the different sections might look a little bit different or be less involved. For like a proposal for a conference, these ones are like what I struggle with the most because you have to think so much about like audience and purpose because you're trying to get accepted to like a conference or for publication, and so you really need to think about like what people want from you. So for things like that, I do spend a little time like reflecting on like what are the conferences or the publications goals, what are my goals as like a presenter or a writer, how do those goals fit together, what is it that I want to express or share kind of with my project, and then what is the best way to kind of market that to a presentation or to a conference planning committee or to editors for a publication.
For me, because I write different types of or I engage in different types of writing, so I would just compare like maybe one or two to kind of say the difference in the process. So I would say like for example, I do write like science blogs, and then I have like research such as like review articles or book chapters. And the major difference between those two is the audience. So for example, for review articles and book chapters, I know that those are catered towards scientists or scholars. And then for science blogs, it's more for like a non-specialist audience. So I'm always mindful of like whenever I'm writing a science blog, I try to write in a conversational tone, and I try to reduce the technical terms that I'm using. And then for like research, of course, you use all the technical terms that and although I don't like complex academic articles. I know some articles they like to use like big words, but whatever does not require a big word, I try to use, like for example, using use instead of utilize or employ. Like utilize and employ sounds really like fancy, but sometimes it hinders like the reading process for your audience. Also, I would say between review articles and book chapters as well, sometimes there's a little bit of difference. For book chapters, I find that I have to break it down a lot. For example, if there is like a broad topic, like the subtopic, and then there's a subtopic, like section 3, section 3.1, section 3.11, I have to break it down like that in order for like the readers to digest it. And then for review articles, and between review articles and research article, like the one that you actually do experiment to write, I find that the difference is between the breadth and the depth. For review article, you want to cover as much as possible in the field, so you're like going more wider, but like for your research article, you're going in depth, so you're like focusing on one specific thing and then deep diving into that to kind of create your narrative. Besides that, I would say like the process is the same you have a topic, you have an idea, you do your research, and then you kind of like write, edit, and get feedback and then submit. So.
Yeah, thank you both. Yeah, it sounds like audience is a really big consideration when switching like modes of writing and what kind of approach you're going to take towards it. So let's see. Oh, first, Grace, did you have any additional questions?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay. Let's see. So could you maybe tell us, since we were talking about different genres, something that's unique about writing in those specific genres, like maybe writing a research article or grant writing or writing that's like a conference proposal, something that's like unique when writing in those specific genres?
I think as far as like conference proposals go, it's actually kind of formulaic. You know, you want to perform certain rhetorical moves that are performed often in conference proposals, because they're so short, they're so brief, and you want to be able to articulate what it is you want your presentation to do in a way that's like compelling and makes the presenters want to accept your presentation. As far as like article writing goes, RetComp is kind of like a weird field for article writing because research looks different in a lot of ways than it might in other fields, especially like social sciences and STEM fields. So it's a little harder to maybe come up with that formula that you need to kind of to articulate your ideas in, you know, the quote unquote right way. So for those, I always think like it's best to really know the publication and have read a lot from the publication and understand what kinds of things they're looking for, what methodologies that that they privilege kind of within their publication, and just like understand the expectations for submission and things like that. um as far as I've never had any experience writing like grant proposals, but I have had to like create documents for some of the organizations I'm a part of, especially some organizations that I'm a board member of, like constitution creation. That's another weird one where you kind of like you're using a formula, but you're trying to kind of adapt it in ways that fit your organization, but there's like kind of a lot of strict guidelines for it. So that's another one where like you have to be kind of hyper audience focused because they're looking for something very specific from you. As far as like presentation writing goes, I have not mastered that at all. So I'm gonna maybe not talk about that one as much.
All right, I was trying to unmute. For me, I think I can pick research writing, like research article writing and grant writing. So I noticed like, although like for research article is like strictly science, you're talking about what you've researched and what you've done and you're presenting your data, interpreting the result and like putting it within the large context of the field in the discussion section and then making your conclusion. But I find for grant writing, it's a mix of you as a person and your science. So for example, in the NIH grant I wrote, there is like research strategy, which is like 6 pages, and then there is a bio sketch, which is basically just about me. So like, who am I? What are my long-term goals? It asks for my grade from like college and my grad school, like what are my grades in all the courses that I've taken, and also my contribution to science. So that aspect of grant writing made me really reflect. I felt like I was writing like a scholarship, or I was kind of trying to market myself to show that like I'm a good candidate for the grant besides the science part. So although when I was writing the grant, I was able to copy like some stuff that I've written for my research and all into the grant, but then I have to do like some self-reflection as like who am I as a scientist and like what are my long-term goals and all of that. So that's one like big difference. And also I noticed within like the research, which means you're doing experiment and then going on to write your data and interpreting your results and all of that, I've submitted like actual research articles and then short communication as well. So I noticed like for the short communication, of course it's short, so they want it to be much more condensed. So I might have like 5 figures, but if I was writing a research article, whenever I talk about the result, I would elaborate a little bit in the results section, but for short communication, I would just like state verbatim, like we did this experiment and we found this, and then that's it. And then a bulk of the short communication is usually the discussion section, but it's not sectioned into discussion. It's like it's like an opinion piece basically. So like paragraph by paragraph. So the first paragraph would be introduction, but you wouldn't headline it as introduction. And the second paragraph would be you describing your results. And then the third paragraph, maybe the last paragraph would be like the discussion and conclusion, which means you interpreting your results within the context of the field. So some of it's kind of the same framework, but the context or how it's structured is different. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had no idea that you, when you wrote grants, you were also having to like talk about yourself and your own like experiences. So that's really neat to know. So like you've both been in your programs for a few years now. So are there any like particular differences that you've noticed between the writing you did in undergraduate versus the writing you're doing now? Because I know that can be kind of a murky thing for graduate students just entering, is like, what is my writing supposed to look like now? So what have you seen your writing change since beginning?
Something that has really helped me as I've been kind of working through my program, because master's programs are so short, and if you want to move on to a PhD, and that has to happen elsewhere, if like your master's and your PhD aren't kind of a combined program, you have to complete your master's degree, apply for PhDs, and in the meantime like make yourself a competitive candidate, which means like publication and presentation. So one thing that I've had to think about a lot is that the writing that I do for my classes, which is a lot, are things that I would like to be kind of like two bird, one stone things. So the research that I'm doing in class, I want that to be able to like not only be a seminar paper, but I want that to become a conference proposal, or I want that to become an article that I submit, or I want that to become part of my thesis. So trying to kind of like connect all of these different writing expectations that I have and make them sort of productive in more ways than one has been really important for me, because it's really just very, very difficult to be a student, to be a scholar, unless you're thinking in kind of creative ways about how those two identities might work with each other a little more easily.
Yeah, for me, I came directly from undergrad to graduate school, and I studied biology in undergrad. So besides like the courses English 1 and English 2, like I didn't have to write that much essays because my course was, my major is like science heavy. So and we weren't required to write as much except for like a research and independent study course and also a biology senior research thesis, which is kind of like my undergrad capstone project. One thing I would say is similarities first. So between undergrad and grad school, the writing I did, both of them required critical thinking, which means like you have to look beyond the surface level and you have to do a little bit of research, whether it's and in research for undergrad, it's basically just like Googling stuff and searching for ideas and contents that you can use to write whatever it is you want to write. And then for grad school, of course, research includes like getting primary data, which means you doing the experiment yourself or conducting surveys and all. I would also say for undergrad, for most of my undergrad, I was actually heavily involved in research. So I'm already familiar, and I read a lot of literature. So I was already familiar with like the types of writing that would be expected in grad school. So I'm not really sure how much difference I could point out because I did my undergraduate research projects, and I had to write like a final proposal, not final proposal, like a final kind of like a publication, but like publication for the school's journal. And during the process of writing that, I find that I was writing like the papers like that I was reading. So when I got to grad school and I saw like this is essentially the same thing that is required, but then the knowledge level is a little bit more in depth. Like you have to really, really understand. It's not surface level. So I would say for undergrad, I was more like surface level in terms of the knowledge, but like the structure of what I was writing was kind of similar. But when I go to grad school, I find I have to learn a lot in depth and in details and basically write the same way.
Yeah, thank you both. So it sounds like learning how to make your writing work as both not only as a student but as a scholar is really important, and also just learning how to dig deeper into what you're working on and have like a more in-depth knowledge base that will allow you to write are both really important things. So thanks for sharing that. Let's see. So we talked a little bit about your writing processes and the types of writing you do. So when you're struggling writing or you feel like you need additional support with your writing, where or to who do you typically go to get that?
Obviously, I worked at the Writing Center, so I'm a huge advocate for the Writing Center and think everybody should go. I think I get a lot of peer support now, sort of informally too, not just by not by scheduling just sessions at the Writing Center, but by talking with my peers and people in my cohort, like Savannah and like some of our classmates in other classes, and other people that work at the Writing Center, just because sometimes like I'm a verbal processor, so like I just need to talk out some of my ideas sometimes if I'm feeling stuck. Also, for me, like I need to get a lot of space away from certain projects sometimes if I feel like I've hit a roadblock and I don't know what's happening. I like to just like take a walk and like think out some of the things that are going on so that, if I'm not being able to like think of where the project needs to go or where the paper needs to go, I just need to like kind of return to the nascent stage, the research stage, and figure out like what are all these different ideas? How am I seeing connections between them? And, what does that ultimately mean for what I want to share with my audience? So definitely, talking with peers, especially at the Writing Center. I also have like great mentors on campus that are always willing to read over things with me, and then, talk about my projects and help provide me guidance. So networking with professors on campus has been hugely important for me.
I would agree with everything Kelsey said, especially the mentors part. For my program, we have the pharmacology program, we have like a is it the trainee committee? I don't know what they're called, but like basically a group of faculty that if you need help with your writing, because my department is really big on applying for fellowships. So they're always willing to do like an internal review, and they also gather like other students and postdocs who want to be involved in the review process, and then they give feedback. Because School of Medicine is so far away from like everything else, I haven't went to the Writing Center, but I think that would be a great option. And not to like toot my own horn, but I feel like I have some inherent writing abilities. So in terms of getting help for my writing, most of it has been independent and like just me searching for stuff. I want to say like we're in the era of like artificial intelligence, which is AI. So like you can always, for example, the most popular one right now is ChatGPT. So you can always go there to like generate ideas, not like to plagiarize or anything, just generate ideas. For example, if you have writer block or something, you can just ask it like, this is the topic I'm writing. Like, what would you like? Maybe create an outline for me. Like, what outlines would you create? And then from there, you can get started. Yeah, I think mentors' feedback and basically doing the research, and also if there are resources on campus or around you that can help, those are always helpful to go to.
Oh, thank you both. Those are some really great ideas, like, learning where to look for resources and reaching out to peers and mentors and things like that. Let's see. Grace, did you have any other questions that you were thinking of now that we've talked a little more?
I guess it's more of something that I'd have to look into, that basic structure of the writing center, because I like that idea. What basically looking into the resources that they provide at what stage the student is in their writing and when they can go to them. And I guess Kelsey might have more experience with the structure of a writing center. It's not, I haven't been there, but it's something that I'll definitely be looking into.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey's worked at the center and I work at the center now, so that's definitely something we can both speak to. We have like an online website for it. You can make an appointment online. They're typically about an hour long, about 45 minutes of like working on the writing, and then like 15 minutes to like wrap things up. And you can come in at any stage. I had someone today come in just to like do some brainstorming and like kind of talk through the assignment guidelines. And we also have people come in, they just want like a final kind of proofread through the piece, and basically anything in between. We accept all pieces at any stage, which is really helpful.
Okay, so it's not just assignments and stuff like that, because I would be mainly focused on my dissertation writing.
Oh yeah, I've had people bring in white papers before. I've had people bring in like applications before, and dissertations before. So yeah, it's definitely not just like shorter assignments. In fact, if you have a longer assignment, you can do 2 appointments in a row, so then you have like a whole 2 hours to work on them if you'd like.
Yeah, I do want to mention like one thing that I didn't touch on is like citation manager for writing, especially for research and dissertation and all of that. It's really, really helpful. So I use Zotero, and I know there are like many out there. There's Mendeley, there's EndNote, PaperPal, all of that. So what I typically do again is like once I have my outline, I kind of create a folder within the citation manager. And then whenever I read a paper on Google, I have like a Chrome connector, and I can index the paper that I'm reading into my citation manager library. So when I'm writing, because with dissertation and research, you have to write and then cite, write and then cite. So if you have the papers already in your library, like you can always click on them, open them, and then grasp an idea from them, and then go back to your document and then write whatever it is, and then you can easily cite it. So that's really, really helpful for like a seamless writing for a dissertation and also for research articles.
Yeah, I started using Zotero pretty recently. I was like late to the bandwagon. But yeah, it's been super helpful so far.
Yeah, I
And
love it. I started with Mendeley, and I was writing a book chapter then, and I lost 150 citations. So I was really, really mad. I'm like, I'm gonna delete this citation manager. I deleted it and then Google like what's a better alternative, and then I found Zotero, and it hasn't disappointed me since. So I'm glad.
Oh,
Wait, Dr. Hardy is talking about writing in community. Which one is this?
oh yes. So I actually facilitate that one. We have a group on Mondays. We meet from 4 to 6. in the graduate commons in the library. And it's just like a time for us to all sit down together and talk about what projects we're working on, and then just have some quiet writing time where we can like really focus. So yeah, it's like, it's time to work on your projects, and it's also kind of that support from like other graduate students. So yeah, it's Mondays 4 to 6 in the graduate commons, and we're also looking to start up a second group, most likely on Tuesdays. Yeah, so those are also good options for like extra
Is
support.
it just a drop-in, or you have to sign up somewhere or something?
You're welcome to drop in. We also have a like a registration form as well. But I like keep the registration form like with us, so if you drop in, you could just like do it there. So
Oh, okay.
I wanted to ask Grace, do you still have this book? Can you see it?
Yes, I do.
You do? Okay. Yeah,
I think
it's really
so. Is it
helpful.
from the IBMG?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were given this in our first year, how to write a lot, and yeah, it's good.
That's good. I will deep dive and find it.
yeah, all right. So we are coming up at the end of our time together. So do either of you have any final words of advice for new graduate student writers?
Yeah, I think like Aisha and I have kind of described like the process that we use and the resources that we use, but I think it's really important like just to find out, like experiment with different strategies and different processes and practices and kind of see what works for you the best, because obviously like these standard notions that we have of like what a writing process is don't really fit everybody. So thinking about kind of like how you learn and how you think about things and how you write will be really important for you to kind of figure out like what is the most productive way to do things, what facilitates me best as a writer, and allows me to kind of do my best work rather than do things in a way that's maybe like expected of me.
Yeah, I would echo similar sentiments. I feel like writing can be intimidating, especially like when you think of it as like this huge obstacle. Okay, now I have to get to it. I would say like basically be patient with yourself. Every day does not have to be like your writing day, or I don't know how to put it. Like you don't have to have like a set schedule for writing. So whenever I mean, obviously you're gonna have a deadline, right? So like depending on the deadline, you want to start like way ahead, and then sometimes you can have the inspiration to write a lot in the morning, and then always just do word vomit. Don't think about the grammar, don't think about the flow, just whatever you're thinking, just pour it on a page, and then afterwards you can go on to look through it and edit and all of that. But it's definitely intimidating, so you just take it one step at a time, and then always think about the criteria, like what is required of you, who is your audience, and what are the formats and structure and all of that, and then that can be like a starting point for you to get going with the writing process.
Yeah, thank you both for taking the time to like come and answer questions and talk about your writing processes. Is there any final questions?
So I think for me, it's not a question. I think the two main things that I've had consistently from people finish PhDs or writers or anything is overcoming the two main obstacles, starting the writing and then writing block. So trying to figure out, because when you do start, then you're actually encouraged to utilize or make use of all these different resources. But being grad students, you have so many things going on that the starting process really is harder, and probably you need a push with the deadline or all these things. So I don't know, I think figuring out a way of overcoming that beginning point, at least for me, is what I'm trying to navigate.
I would say for dissertation, you can start with downloading the template. I think there's a template on the Grad website. I'm not sure what it is, but I just started with like I mean, we're in the same year, so I understand what you mean. I would just download the template and then title it like Grace dissertation or something, and then maybe put it on your desktop. Every time you open your computer, you would always see that folder there, and then that reminds you that, okay, I need to get to this someday. So yeah, that would be good.
Thank you.
Yeah, the visual reminder of it, just kind of keep it in your thoughts. I like that idea. That's really nice. Kelsey, do you have any things that like motivate you when you're struggling?
Usually if I'm just like not finding a way into writing or working on the project, I do some free writing. So maybe I'm just like writing a little bit about like maybe I'm answering some questions like who's my audience? What are my purposes? What are my goals? Maybe I'm writing about like here's some ideas I got from the reading or the research that I did most recently. And then just like writing something that's like informal and is not going to probably see the light of day just can kind of help you like take the stress away a little bit, take some of the expectations and pressure off of you, and just like allow you to kind of let your thoughts come out in a more free way that you don't have to like worry about. You're not worried about like grammar, you're not worried about who else is going to read it or anything like that. It's just you to kind of be like expressing your ideas, and then you can kind of read through it again and see if maybe any connections came up.
Yeah, I really like that too. The removal of expectations to kind of help yourself when you're blocked. Yeah, that's really useful. All right, so we are just about at the end of our time. Thank you, Aisha and Kelsey, for coming out today. Thank you, Grace, for attending, and Dr. Hardy for joining me. So y'all have the good rest of your day. And I'm glad we got to have this conversation. So, and good luck with your
Thank you.
writing.
Thank you,
Thank you
Savannah,
so
Thank you.
much.
and
Bye.
for
Thanks,
putting this
everybody.
on. Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks, Savannah. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.